A standing forward fold is a really great passive stretch for our hamstring flexibility, those muscles in the back of our legs. This is the type of flexibility that we need to be able to touch our toes, to get our front leg really flat towards the floor in our front splits, get our chest to the ground in our straddles for our straddle pancakes, things like that. There's two things I want you to keep in mind to make sure that this is a really effective hamstring stretch and you're not compensating by letting other parts of your body, namely your back, try to help you reach towards the floor. Number one is keeping your back really flat. Number two is if you've got tight hips, go ahead, bend your knees. So let's talk about good form for our forward fold if our goal is to get a nice hamstring stretch. We're gonna start from standing with our feet hip width apart, toes pointing forwards. I'm going to keep my back totally flat in this position. Bend my knees a little bit if I've got tighter hamstrings, and I'm gonna lean forwards by sticking my butt out back behind me and rotating my hip bones towards the floor until I start to feel a stretch in the back of my thighs. Those are my hamstrings. We can have our hands on our thighs for balance. If you're someone with tight hamstrings, this is what your forward fold might look like. Not like what you see on Instagram, I know. My chest isn't near parallel, my knees are really bent, but if this is where you're feeling that stretch, great. This is where you're gonna hang out. If you're someone with a little bit more flexibility, your torso might be a little closer to parallel towards the floor. Those legs might be a little straighter. Maybe your hands are on your shins, on blocks, or on the floor. But I want you to be really, really conscious that we've got our tailbone lifting, our sits bones, the bony parts in the bottom of your pelvis, lifting up towards the ceiling. And we're not forward folding by leaning forwards with our arms and rounding our back. What this does is potentially, it could be a nice stretch for our back, depending on your back flexibility, but it's not making our hamstrings do anything different. They're in the exact same position as when I was up here. My hips aren't rotating, it's just a different stretch for my back. So keeping our back totally flat keeps it out of the equation as I come to my forward fold. For folks who are a little bit more flexible, we can take our hands off of our hips to work on the strength of our hamstrings in this position. So our hamstrings are lightly engaged, keeping our torso lifted so they don't collapse to the ground, or those arms can come out to the side or overhead to make it even more challenging. Moral of the story, back flat, hip bones tilting forwards, optional bend in the knees.
If you want to learn more stretches like this, you should totally check out the Flexopedia on my website. It's a free online library of stretches with detailed how to's for both passive stretches and active stretches organized by muscle group. You can access the Flexopedia by going to dannywinksflexibility.com/Flexopedia or simply click the link in this video description.